This is Tim Bryce with my column entitled, Whatever Happened to UNIVAC? Through my columns, I occasionally write something related to American history. I do this because I believe young people are losing their sense of history and are doomed to repeat mistakes we've made in the past. The same is true in industrial history, in my case, the computer field. To illustrate, a few years ago I inherited my father's UNIVAC Zippo lighter. I always admired it. It was small, sleek, and had an impressive UNIVAC logo engraved on it. I believe he got it back in the early 1960s. As an aside, my father was one of the first 50 computer programmers in the United States, starting back in 1954 when he worked on the UNIVAC 1 at the U.S. Bureau of Census. I also have his original programming book from 1954 and template and photos, along with some print wheels from the first high-speed printer, a UNIVAC 1 magnetic tape, made of metal I might add, and some plug boards. However, it was the small lighter he carried which I fancied. Nonetheless, I was recently at a meeting where I met a gentleman approximately 40 years of age who is also actively engaged in the computer business. I pulled him aside and proudly showed him the lighter. He looked at it with a blank stare and said, "What is a UNIVAC?" I was thunderstruck by the comment. Even though it represented the first commercial computer, he had no idea of what it was, nor seemed to care. It occurred to me there is no sense of industrial history anymore. Through my father and my own personal experiences, I have a deep sense of history for my craft, but I must be an anomaly. Some time ago I wrote a paper entitled A Short History of Systems Development in the hopes of recording some of these historical milestones. It was well received, but I fear students are not learning such lessons from the college professors or simply do not care. I also recently met with some high school students interested in a career in computing. Their sense of history only goes as far back as Microsoft, Apple, and the Internet. Most were knowledgeable with the C and C++ programming languages, but little else. I then asked them if they knew what a 4GL was. A handful knew. I next asked what a first GL, second GL, or third GL was. None knew. I explained it as the first GL was the first generation language, which is programming and machine language. The second generation language is assembly language. Third generation language is procedural languages such as COBOL, Fortran, PL1, C, and C++. Fourth generation language are interpreters, specification-driven tools to produce code. I then went into a dissertation of how and why these languages were invented. As an aside, the 3GL was based on a manual procedure language derived from Broadway scripts, invented by Les Mathias, the Dean of Systems. When the Navy's Admiral Grace Hopper developed COBOL, standing for Common Business-Oriented Language, she used Les Mathias's PlayScript technique and automated it. COBOL was then emulated and simplified by ensuing programming languages. We also discussed the premise behind the Java language, which is write once, run everywhere. I next asked if they were familiar with the various DBMS models, database management systems. Again, none knew anything about them. I then went on to explain the differences between the hierarchical model, such as IBM's IMS and DBOMP, the codicil network model, such as IDS, Total, IDMS, and Database, the relational model used by most computers today, such as DB2 and Oracle, and the object-oriented model, which is slowly gaining in acceptance. More importantly, I explained why the DBMS was invented. A large amount of the credit goes to Charles Bachman of GE and Honeywell, where he invented IDS to implement bill of materials processing in manufacturing. My point to the young students and to you is that it is important to study the past so we do not replicate the same mistakes. This is what craftsmen do regardless of the industry. Regretfully, I see little of this in business anymore, particularly in the computer field. It is difficult to innovate and invent without a sense of such history. Considerable time and effort is wasted as a result. As to UNIVAC itself, which stood for the Universal Automatic Computer, the computer was invented by the Eckert Mauchly Computer Corporation, which became a division of the Remington Rand Corporation. Remington was acquired by the Sperry Rand Corporation and dubbed the computer division Sperry UNIVAC, then just UNIVAC. In 1986, the company merged with Burroughs Corporation, another maker of mainframe computers, to become Unisys. I think I'll continue to carry my father's UNIVAC lighter in case I run into more people involved with the computer business. It's quite a conversation piece. One last bit of trivia. Who were the bunch competing with IBM in the mainframe wars of yesteryear? Answer: Burroughs, UNIVAC, NCR, CDC, and Honeywell. And where are they now? Friends, keep the faith. This is Tim Bryce of Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.